False flag alert on refugee crisis. Thank you for watching the Shikama Live show. My tongue is swollen, so I might sound funny. I don't know what to do. In the past week, the flood of undocumented and unregistered Middle Eastern and African migrants into the EU has become an inundation. The high water mark of the human tide is located in Hungary, which is not a logical outcome despite the country's geographical position at the center of Europe. Understanding why is the key to understanding, that word's hard for me, what is happening not in but to Europe. After allowing unregistered migrants to board eastbound trains to Vienna and Munich, Hungary suddenly closed Budapest Grand Kledi train station on Tuesday to migrants seeking transport to Germany via Austria and the Czech Republic. Thousands are now encamped outside the station, surrounded by Hungarian police officers and the agents of smugglers' networks. Until registered and approved for a Schengen visa, the immigrants are stranded and will most likely, in time, be sent back from whence they came. Germany's earlier relaxation of its national immigration rules was the source of Hungary's confusion on Monday. The displaced crowds grows by the hours as waves of migrants continue arriving from the country's southern border with Serbia after having first transited Macedonia, at whose southern border the Greeks deliver busloads, I thought I said buttloads, of successful migrants, an alarming number of whom have been plucked from the sea by European rescue ships before being deposited onto the Greek mainland. But why tiny Macedonia, which is neither an EU, did you know that, or a NATO member? Did you know that? Why not equally accessible Albania or Bulgaria? What are EU instructions to its chattel state Greece? Or, as Oriental Review contributor Andrew Koribyoko asks, why don't the migrants just use mainland Greece as a stepping stone for a final boat ride to Italy? Germany lies directly north of Italy, and getting there from northern Italy will require transit only through a narrow slice of western Austria, thus avoiding the multinational trek the current route requires. Mr. Koribyoko alleges, as Ron Paul does, that the smuggler networks are being influenced by Western intelligence, and Korybyoko's delicate phrasing, and are being led to believe that the longer route from northern Greece through the Balkans to Budapest is the one most certain of success. It is also possible the refugees' travel is being financed and directed by an oil-rich ISIS at the U.S.'s behest. The truth is that the longer route leaves EU and NATO member Bulgaria and key U.S. ally Albania relatively undisturbed, while delivering a mighty blow to those nations, and in the case of Macedonia and Serbia, largely Orthodox populations, which have either declined to participate or have criticized sanctions, Catholic Hungary against Russia, or all of which hope to participate in Russia's Balkans Stream gas pipeline project. Did you understand that paragraph? So they're redirecting these migrants, quote unquote, which is actually being led by ISIS, backed by the US, backed by the EU, backed by NATO, through these countries which refuse to join the EU and NATO. People, this is all very tricky, all very underhanded, all very complex political machinations. If you understand that word, machinations would mean all of their little little plans to have these terrorists, basically, mercenaries, realistically, go through these countries, and if they just happen to rape and pillage along the way, oh well, kind of like the quote-unquote Catholic crusades, which was neither Catholic nor a crusade, but the dukes, lords, knights, which they were trying to get rid of. The king was trying to get rid of those people so he could take their land. How can you get rid of a rich guy? Along the way, as they went from England or France and traveled, there was no like airplane, and traveled along the way, they raped and pillaged most of Europe, which is another thing you never learn, right? They raped, pillaged, and stole precious items on the way. So the dukes, knights, lords raped, pillaged their own European. Europe has never been this one all-encompassing white people as they try and make you believe here in the United States. The Europeans are more divided than Africans ever were. Africans had empires the size of Europe in them, all being beholden to one emperor in their empire. So you would have an empire the size of Europe in Africa over and over and over and over and over, and everybody in that area would obey their emperor. And it wasn't like it was in Europe where the king tried to be God. It was more of, oh, that's our leader, we're proud of him, he's a great guy. And that's pretty much it. A lot of Western propaganda tries to make Africa look like something terrible. No, it was just somebody you were super proud of. Oh, that's our emperor. He's super awesome. Did you see him in combat? He was awesome. High five. I'm trying to put it in terms of today. So the EU and NATO are sending what would amount to be a cavalcade of crusaders through these nations that disagree with them, don't want to join them. And if these crusaders, ISIS, march through their land, rape and pillage and steal and murder and all this stuff, they have absolutely no sweat from their brow. Now, they're avoiding Bulgaria and Albania. I was reading those two words at the same time. They are leaving them completely undisturbed for fear that they would rape, pillage, murder along the way. Although it's only like 2 countries versus like 5 or 6. Once the American misadventure in Ukraine turned sticky and was understood to have failed to bait Russia into invading, the U.S. instigated Plan C. Now, before I go any further, I have made several videos talking about, now I got Macedonia on the brain, Crimea. And the Western media tried to make Crimea look as if Russia had invaded Crimea, when in fact Crimea is a Russian people area. And in fact, Stalin, I'm doing all of this off the top of my head, Stalin gave up Crimea to the Ukraine, and the Crimeans had never even asked about that. And for that matter of fact, Ukraine had never asked for it. It was literally like, what is it, Baja, Mexico? What's the thing off of the coast of California that's full of Californians? There's no Mexicans there, but half of it is in the Mexican territory, and so they gave it up to Mexico. It's just like that. It's just as if Mexico, if Baja California, if I'm getting this right, all of a sudden California claimed all of Baja California. But there's no Mexicans that actually live there. It's nothing but Californians that live there. They're trying to make Crimea appear as if Russia, quote unquote, invaded. The Crimeans finally asked, who have been asking since Stalin, hey, we want to be a part of Russia again. So finally, Putin said, okay. They're all Russians. They all speak Russian. They can trace all of their family history to Russia. It's the same exact thing if Baja California had been declared by California to be California again. There's no Mexicans there, just Californians. Why it's a part of the international border, I have no idea. But it would be the same instance if California declared it California and Mexico is trying to make it look like California had invaded. No, they asked for them to come in. Crimea asked them to come in. I did an entire little documentary video on it. Go look it up on my channel. Just click my name and type in Crimea. You'll get several videos. Once the American misadventure in Ukraine turned sticky and was understood to have failed to bait Russia into invading, i.e. World War III, search World War III on my channel as well, the U.S. instigated Plan C, Migrant Madness, which followed the earlier failure of Plan B, which was to instigate a color revolution in Macedonia. I have a little whiff of that. Americans are generally unaware of those many events in Macedonia because the country successfully deflected the murderous assault of terrorist thugs for whom the ground was being prepared for Zoran Zaev, an agent of the U.S. and George Soros, via an outfit named Canvas, the commercial heir to the Optor project, whose deceptive actions succeed in destabilizing Serbia with a color revolution some 15 years ago. All of that you can look up online. Pause the video, go back over it, and look up all of those actions, events. The setup is truly diabolical. Macedonia, a nation of only slightly more than 2 million, which enjoys a significant and largely peaceful Muslim minority population, and which is bordered on the north by Albania-controlled Kosovo, is at risk of partition by both Albania and Bulgaria, both of which would very much like to enlarge their own territories at the expense of Macedonia's existence. If Macedonia Muslims can be made restive, partition is a possibility. You see what this is? This is the 1400s all over again. Everybody, I keep saying, Europe is not the cohesive, we're white people thing that Americans think they are. A lot of the monarchy did not disappear as all of the modernists want to think. They literally, you have on one side the Hitler crowd, and this is what you don't know about the Hitler crowd, or you don't know about Europe. You have these modernists that said Europe should be this one massive, cohesive area, and we're all white people. Well, you have people in Europe who, first of all, don't even consider themselves white, because they're not Scandinavian. That's white. They're not Germanic. That's white. They are Eastern European. They are Persian, which actually, and Americans are not going to even believe this, they look white. They have blue eyes, green eyes, light brown eyes, straight nose, thin lips, pale skin, but who can sit out in the sun and look slightly lighter than I am. I'm plenty dark. They can tan very well. They do not consider themselves white, but technically they're in Europe. How that's a continent, I don't know, because normally continents are single border areas, right? Africa, single border around Africa. Europe doesn't have a single border around it. They've just designated where white people live or is Europe. But the people inside of Europe don't all consider themselves white. In fact, the Europeans don't consider each other white. Spain, Italy, Greece, Macedonia don't consider themselves white. And they're definitely not Franco-Germanic, whatever that is. Gauls, whatever that is. Viking, they don't consider themselves that. So on the one side, you have the Hitlerites, the people who want the one continent government, all being ruled by this elite board that has this stupidity of we're all white, although no, the people inside of the countries don't consider themselves quote unquote white. And then you still have the feudalist crowd who say, this is my territory. Now, they might come across in modern times to say, this is our country, and we're a part of a country, and we are the such and so people. And the whole Muslim versus Christian versus what completely disappears when they start talking about that. Over here we have the United States, and the United States, the powers that be inside of the United States seeks to divide. Over there, they don't have that. When they say that they're a part of a nation, they're part of a nation, they're part of an area. It doesn't matter that guy's Muslim. It doesn't matter that guy's Orthodox. It's England and the United States that are saying stuff like, oh, Egypt was white, Egypt was white, Egypt is white, the black people. Over there, that's not even in question. They know that the friggin' Arabs went through all of Northern Africa and slaughtered all of the black Africans. They weren't better, they were just organized, right? You can catch Shaquille O'Neal slipping on a bad day, right? And you only have to slip one time, right? If we're talking about war, why am I using Shaquille O'Neal? Because he's a huge freaking human. So you listening to me, I'm assuming you're not all 7 feet tall. You're not all 300 pounds. On a bad day, you could catch Shaquille O'Neal slipping, and that's all it would take. They did a jihad and just slaughtered everybody in Northern Africa. And now the white people are crazy, and they think, oh, it's been that way for thousands of years. No, that hasn't been that way for nothing but, what, maybe 1,000? Not even that. The jihad didn't even start until like 300-400 years after, quote unquote, Muhammad, if he ever existed. Oh, the atheists will tell you that Jesus didn't exist. And only real, true, learned atheists will tell you that Muhammad didn't exist. Nor did Moses, nor did Jacob, nor did Israel, whoever became Israel, didn't exist. But that's another video. Europe is not one cohesive group. You have the Hitlerites fighting the feudalites, the feudalism crowd. As a libertarian, I would lean towards the feudalism crowd more because they simply say, we're one cohesive people. It doesn't matter who's in our borders. This is our borders. This is who we belong to. Everybody inside of it is free to do whatever the hell they want to. They could be Muslim, they could be Christian, they could be Orthodox, they could be Coptic, whatever they want to be. It is the indoctrination of the United States and this whole divide, that we do not have that attitude here. We actually have a Hitlerite attitude. How's that for shocking? How's that for gross? That you're under this indoctrination. And a lot of people are going to deny it, but just look at it. Powerful oligarchy sitting at top. We call them Wall Street. We call them the Rothschild. We call the Federal Reserve. And they keep all of the peasants, all us peasants down here busy with this whole black people are so terrible, although there's only like 10 black people in the United States. Black people are so awful, kill them. And they've convinced the 2 black people to say that they want to kill white people. All 2 of them with their 3 friends, 3 Mexican buddies are going to go off and kill all the 245 million white people. Yeah, that's going to work out. They all keep us divided, right? But we are under a Hitlerite regime, and Obama is the pinnacle so far. Who knows what the next president is going to be, right? And I don't think Trump is the answer, because Trump, unbeknownst to a lot of his followers, is the next step of the Hitlerite crowd. He believes in all of this mess. Now, over here, he'll talk about, freedom. We need to get these people out of there who've been there for years. But he believes in socialism too. He believes in corporate socialism. We keep the profits. You keep the losses. You peasants pay for the losses. He believes in that. Trust me, if you don't want that, still, which is what Obama also preaches, corporate socialism. No, it's not capitalism, it's corporate socialism. So Trump is the next step in that. I don't know anything about Carson's economic policies, other than his medical policy, which is fantastic. The setup is truly diabolical. Macedonia, a nation of only slightly more than 2 million, which enjoys a significant and largely peaceful Muslim minority population, and which is bordered on the north by Albania-controlled Kosovo, is at risk of partition by both Albania and Bulgaria, both of which would very much like to enlarge their own territories at the expense of Macedonia's existence. If Macedonian Muslims can be made restive, partition is possible. So you're going to get these Muslim radicals, these Muslim terrorists, these Muslim mercenaries, which is what they are. That's all they are. And it's just like the Catholics. They sent the Jesuits out to these places. Oh, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to go to hell. And so they send their little imams and what have you and say, oh, if you're not this type of Muslim, and there are different types of Muslims. There are the just like the Jack Mormons, the Jack Catholics, the ones who go to church like once a year, but call themselves Catholic or call themselves Mormon or call themselves Baptist or whatever. They go to church like once, maybe twice a year, and for the most part, just go to work and come home and eat dinner, kiss their wife and go to bed. You have entire sects, S-E-C-T-S, of Muslims who are that type of Muslim. So you get these imams come and say, oh, how can you live with the devil? How can you live with the infidel? How can you live with, And so they go, is this the type of Muslim we're supposed to be? Because in the absence of doing nothing, in the absence of going to church but once a year or maybe twice a year, people can come along and say, oh, you're doing it wrong. Here is something to actively do. That's actually very easy. If you say you belong to a group and somebody comes along and says, you're not doing all that you can to belong to this group. This is how you have people who say, if you're not a Seventh-day Adventist and you're not baptized in our church, you're not going to heaven. The people preaching that if you're baptized in their church, you're going to heaven are just stupid and they don't know what they're talking about. They have no works. They're not holy. You need to belong to the holy rollers. You need to belong to the Bible thumpers. Look at all of the wonderful things that we do. Look at our gigantic church. This is evidence. God has created this. Look, this is evidence. So this is what they do. They come in, and if you belong to that group, Muslim, but you don't do very much, and you don't know very much, and somebody comes along and tells you that you need to do this, and that, and the other, you'll fall for it. I don't blame anybody. Who do I really blame? I blame the hand behind the hand. So these ISIS mercenaries bought and paid for by the U.S. military, Obama, George Soros, Saudi royal family. How could ISIS, a tiny group, all of a sudden balloon into this nation-sized group of people and have all of these tanks take over oil, control oil of an entire nation? Come on, people. What both Macedonia and Serbia fear are ISIS terrorists intentionally being folded into the migrant horde, destined for Albanian-dominated Kosovo, an ideal base for realizing their Balkan destabilization mandate, kind of like the U.S. mandate to get from coast to coast and have it one country. Bulgaria, an Orthodox country, has no interest in aiding and abetting ISIS terrorists and finds itself trapped by its NATO and EU membership. Monday brought proof of Bulgaria's and Macedonia's shared dilemma when Bulgarian border guards seized a cell of 5 terrorists masquerading as refugees, loaded with decapitation videos and ISIS propaganda. In February, Turkish intelligence warned police in an internal memo that up to 3,000 trained jihadists were seeking to cross into Turkey from Syria and Iraq. Now, how does Catholic Hungary and EU and a NATO member fits into the picture. Very snugly, thank you. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban threw down the gauntlet in a June interview with the Daily Napi Gazdazog, saying multiculturalism means the coexistence of Islam, Asian religions, and Christianity. We will do everything to spare Hungary from that. We welcome non-Christian investors, artists, scientists, but we don't want to mix on a mass scale. Apparently saying that you want to keep the sovereignty of your nation, and if your nation is 90% Catholic, apparently that's terrible. Now, I'm no longer Catholic, but the United States is now bulging at the seams with a 75% Christianity rate. It only is logical that the country should have Christian values, Christian morals, and a legal system leaning towards Christianity. I know the illogical are going to say, "Oh, that's not true." No, it's logical. It's human. Let's say you go into a group and it's 90% men. When you go to the bathroom, expect to see stalls, urinals. You can't say, I'm a woman. You need to put stalls. You need to put only stalls here. No, this is a 90% men group. Either find yourself another group or learn how to use a urinal. I'm being ridiculous, but you understand the logic of it. We're being told by people who are not Christian, who have no Christian morals, who have no Christian values, although they pretend to be, that the country should bow down to people who are not Christian. Quote unquote, I am not Christian, technically speaking, but as a libertarian, as a thinking man, I have absolutely no qualms with the country talking about Christian morals, Christian values, Christian family setup. As long as nobody marches into my house and says, "Hey, you have to eat fish. It is Friday. How dare," something like that. I have no problem. No problem at all. I don't want to see a Baphomet statue in the city square. I don't care. Well, I don't care. I don't care to see a big Buddha, although I probably think it would be very cute. A big Buddha in the city square. But the 10 Commandments, I can understand. Completely understand. I mean, they kind of make sense, right? Don't kill. I kind of agree with that. Huh? Don't take people's wives. I kind of agree with that. Although I'm not married, I kind of agree with that. Why do I agree with that? Because that'd be a lot of drama if everybody went around stealing each other's wives. I kind of agree with that. A big Buddha, I'm actually okay. A big Shiva, I'm still okay. A Baphomet, talking about human sacrifice, kidnapping children, drinking people's bloods, I'm not okay with that. I'm a freedom guy, but I'm not okay with that. If we had a huge Asian population in my city, huge. Let's say this was Vancouver, which I hear is like 70% Asian. I would expect to see a big, huge Buddha or a big, huge Shiva. I don't, whatever Asian you're talking about. I would expect to see a big, huge Buddha, a big, huge Shinto shrine. I would expect it. And no, this whole doctrine of separation of church and state is erroneous. They keep teaching you the wrong thing in school. The Constitution, there will be no establishment. Do you hear me? The Constitution says there will be no establishment. It doesn't mean the government can't talk about Christianity. Somebody who works for the government can't talk about Christianity. It says that they cannot establish, they can't have a loudspeaker saying, Allah, bli, bli, Allah, blah, blah, blah. Oh, does that sound familiar? Yes, there are some little cities already where the government is establishing a religion for the city. Can't do that. You can have all of the religious clubs in school that people can voluntarily go to. Every single religion on the planet. I think there's like 2,000 last time I checked. That's fine. That's okay. People are miseducated on a lot of this American stuff. But at this point in history, it is the largest percentage of the population that is Christian. The largest, which is ironic, seeing as supposedly we're going up in modernity, right? modern times. A larger percentage of people in the United States are Christian, and I'm sorry to tell you, Baptists and Protestants, Catholics are Christian. You got your religion from Catholics, not the other way around. I know you have this weird doctrine that Catholics aren't Christians. Mormons, on the other hand, are a different story. But anyway, why they call themselves Christians, I don't know. I don't want to get into that argument. But this is the first time in history that the country has been at 75% Christian. This is the largest percentage of the population that has been Christian in the United States. Now, we have Bulgaria saying, I'm going to let you talk, but these people are not going to come up in here. We're Catholics. We want to stay Catholic. You EU people, you can do all your multiculturalism all you want to. That's fine. We're Catholic. We're going to stay over here. And for EU, that's horrible, right? It's not for the countries. It's the leaders who want to destroy any sense of sovereignty, including sovereign religion, sovereign state, sovereign government, sovereign people. Rejecting the EU proposal for each member nation to accept a quota of refugees, Orban continued with building a 3.5-meter fence along Hungary's border with Serbia, which brought him particularly strong statements of condemnation from both France and Germany today, which is ironic since France is having a hell of a time with the Muslims over there. Hell of a time. They're murdering people in the streets. Murdering people. Muslims. Yeah, they don't have jack Muslims over there. They have full-fledged jihad infidel Muslims in France. Take hold over whole sections of Paris and murder anybody inside of it. Murder. A human killing another human is murder. Yes, including abortion. I know you don't want to hear about that. Today, that criticism has ceased, and Bulgaria's project of fencing its borders with Turkey goes unremarked. Seems like we're hearing about a border in the United States. Now, I'm the son of a diplomat. I actually worked in the Department of State myself also. When George Bush said that he's going to do everything to protect the United States, I thought immediately he's going to erect a huge wall at our southern border, and for that part, our northern border. But he didn't. And I was literally shocked, like dumbfounded. You cannot protect the United States when terrorists, actual terrorists, can cross from Mexico. And intelligence came in, reports came in that the terrorists were, in fact, crossing the southern border. And when they increased the border patrol, increased the employees of the border patrol, they started coming in from Canada. Thank you, Canadians. Thanks for that. Which is funny. Canada has some sort of restriction on what Americans can get into Canada, but the United States has no such thing from the Canadian border. And in fact, those stringent rules and regulations of Americans crossing into Canada got stricter and stricter and stricter. How do you like them apples? Kind of shocking. But borders, fences. I know the Libertarian Party says we shouldn't have it. Hey, you know what? It's nice to live in this utopian society sort of ideal, but we have to deal with what we have right now. Maybe in the future when the entire human race becomes this enlightened, free society, free thinking, and you don't have people who want to murder you if you don't believe in their religion. And no, the Crusades don't count, because that is not what the Crusades were about. I know you've been taught this whole the Catholics are evil and blah, 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 blah. Now, you could talk about conquistadors doing that, but even the conquistadors weren't trying to spread religion. They were trying to take everybody's money, take their gold. That's what that was about too. At no point in no time did a white person go, you have to believe in this religion. No, there was somebody behind him standing, I have a sword, I'm going to brainwash you. And when that guy finishes brainwashing you, I'm going to come in and murder you. The brainwashing was coincidental. It wasn't these people are talking about the brainwashing is the thing that they want. There's a difference. I know it's an intellectual difference, but there's a difference. I know it's a very tricky difference, but it is a difference. Europe will be happy to bottle up the refugees on the Balkan and Turkish sides of those fences, no matter the damage Hungary and Bulgaria suffer from doing Europe's dirty work. Once registered, the refugees can simply rot waiting for approval of their applications to enter Europe, which will never come, since most will be declared to be economic and not political refugees, as will the refugees currently stranded in Hungary. Let me tell you about the Cubans. While I was in law school, I had a chance to go down to Florida, or I was offered a chance to go down to Florida, which I did not take. And we were to determine as lawyers, not really lawyers, whether or not the person was a political or an economic refugee. As such, we were told right off the bat, 99% are going to be economic refugees. We do not accept economic refugees. The fact that you can't get work in your country doesn't matter. Does that sound familiar? Because it happens in the United States. Who cares if you can't get a job? You're a man. You're supposed to take care of women. Too bad. So sorry. Nobody's going to give you a handout. Oh, you're a woman? Here you go. Here's all the money that you want. Oh, you're a woman with a child? Nobody's ever said, oh, you're a woman with a child. Let's give it to the man who has money. He can take care of the child. No, they're going to give the woman money. Because why? The woman's going to vote Democrat. And 99.99999% do. White, black, blue, green, whatever. But we have refugees who come to the United States all the time, and we reject them all the time. So they're saying right here in black and white, these refugees will be refused because they're economic refugees. They're not political refugees. Nobody's shooting at them. They just want to get out. They may have blown up the store, but that was 5 years ago. Nobody's even been down that street in 5 years. Nobody with a gun or AK-47 or whatever the mercenaries are doing. They're mercenaries. They are paid to shoot people. I know they want to put this word terrorist. It doesn't even mean anything today. All Europe has to do is to deliver appropriate funds to Greece, Italy, Hungary, Macedonia, and Bulgaria for administrating the refugees' applications and for the building and maintaining of tent cities to house them. Cheap, problem, and abeyance. Not so fast, says Russia academician and historian Jelena Guskova. Guskova's research has led her to the conclusion that what is being prepared for immediate effect is the establishment of a green transversal, a Muslim state in Christian Europe. She cites the growth of Islamic radicalism in the Balkans via Serbia's Wahhabi and Red Rose cells, Macedonia's Tariqat and Al-Qaeda cells in Kosovo and northern Albania, which, in cooperation with Bosnia and Herzegovina, will create the green transversal. So you understand? She's saying that this is what they're trying to do. They're getting a foothold in Europe, and they're going to build a state inside of Europe. Refugees. Let me continue. Guskova foresees the police in Serbia and Macedonia beginning operations against armed squads of terrorists, during which Albanian civilians will be killed in the ensuing clashes, and then the Islamicists in Serbia, Macedonia, and Bosnia-Herzegovina will rise up to save their endangered brothers, thus providing an open doorway for NATO to enter in force. Do you see? This is wheels within wheels, plans within plans. This is politics, ladies and gentlemen. This is how they do this stuff. They create the problem so that they can solve the problem by gaining more power. The playing out of the above scenario, especially convenient during an ongoing market collapse, will allow the United States to finally gain full control of the fiercely independent Balkans, while providing a giant wound on the European continent into which the U.S. can pour salt whenever necessary to curb any European initiative for independent action and the establishment of a much strengthened NATO. And of course, the big prize, the continuation of sanctions against Russia and the elimination of the Balkan Stream pipeline, that this program will deprive the world of a vibrant and useful Europe while impeding a constructive Russia, are consequences Washington regards as inconsequential when weighed against the U.S. intention to grind its collective boot in humanity's face forever. That is only the Balkan nations and Russia which are keeping keenly aware of U.S. plans is a strategy of irresponsible and compromised Western media has advanced to appreciate just how unprepared Europe is for the facts. A Russian insider article from yesterday reporting on prominent German pundits called for more bombs and more intervention in the Middle East in order to solve the refugee crisis, reveals the sad truth of Europe's ongoing suicide at the behest of their American overlord. This is a protracted plan. And no, Obama didn't come up with this plan. Of course, these were all the puppet masters. And now Obama is saying that we need to accept 10,000 quote-unquote refugees into the United States. Now, I went on Facebook and copied and pasted, these are not refugees. These are ISIS. They will radicalize any and every possible Muslim, try and convert any and every possible Christian in the United States, create a horrible mess, create a horrible problem. Obama is trying to nationalize the police that you pay for, that are beholden to you, that are under your control, that you can get rid of at any time. He's trying to nationalize them. And you cannot get rid of a federal agent at all, no matter what they do. Federal agents run around murdering people, raping and murdering people, still in business. He wants to nationalize the police so that when these ISIS agents come directly imported with your open arms, oh yes, let's have the refugees come to the United States. And it's 10,000? 10,000 isn't enough to do anything to anybody, but if it's 10,000 strong young men, that's enough. That's enough to cause a problem. Do you think if they move to Chicago, they could cause a problem? If they move to Detroit, could they cause a problem? If they move to Miami, could they cause a problem? I guarantee you they could. They could take over a whole section, and you'd have to call the National Guard in to solve the problem. I just want people to understand what is really going on. Thank you for watching the Chicago Life Show.